What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, aka Darth Apocalypse. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Trenard Washington for the donation to the channel via the Cash App. Salute to you once again for showing love. And I want to talk about one of the more forgotten players in today's history, and that is Glenn Big Dog Robinson. All right, they love to talk about how, in our era, there were nothing but a bunch of plumbers, but there was a lot of embedded stars in the Michael Jordan era / Kobe Bryant eras. They just don't talk about them. They make it seem like it was just a handful of stars when it was actually a whole bunch of solid players and all-star level players that played in the NBA at the time. Glenn Big Dog Robinson is the father of Glenn Robinson III, who also played in the NBA. And Glenn Big Dog Robinson played from 1994 to 2005 for the Milwaukee Bucks, Atlanta Hawks, the Philadelphia 76ers, and I believe he spent 1 year with the San Antonio Spurs where he actually won a championship, although, I got to admit, he didn't really play very well during the playoffs. But for his career, and especially considering the fact that he played mostly in the dead ball era, I think that his overall numbers were very impressive. He averaged 20.7 points, 6.1 rebounds, and 2.7 assists. And he was doing that in a league where, teams, maybe that first year he played, were averaging maybe around a little over 100 points a game, a little bit under 100 points a game. And then by the time he retired, teams were averaging maybe 93, 94 points a game. So this is a different era. Trust me, today he would be averaging a lot more points. Now, I do want to be fair. He had some weaknesses, in my opinion. He wasn't perfect. I don't want to make these guys out to be superstars. I mean, not superstars, but I don't want these guys out to be like all-time NBA legends like Chamberlain and Russell or, Bird. Okay, look. One thing that I didn't like about Glenn Big Dog Robinson was, despite the fact that he had the size of a borderline power forward, 6'7", 240, he took a lot of jump shots. Okay. Matter of fact, he generally was seen as, today he would be all wrong for the NBA because he mostly took mid-range jump shots. Now, he was a great mid-range scorer. Matter of fact, one guy you can kind of compare him to be honest with you, is you could make an argument that Glenn Big Dog Robinson was like Paul Pierce, except for Pierce was a little bit more prolific as a scorer, a little bit more. I would give Pierce a little bit more of an edge from outside shooting, and Pierce had better ball handling ability. But they had similar games. Glenn Big Dog Robinson, for his strength and size, he should have posted up more. He should have scored in the post more. But I suspect that, and then, I would never describe Big Dog Robinson as fat per se, but you kind of look at him as opposed to when he played for Purdue in college, where he was an absolute beast. And you can get the perception that, you can get the you get the perception, I guess, that he put on a little weight, man. He kind of wasn't in the greatest of basketball shape playing basketball. You know what I'm saying? Had kind of like the Luka Doncic disease. Feel me? But he was an absolute beast in college. Absolute beast. National College Player of the Year 1994. Consensus First Team All American 1994. Consensus Second Team All American 1993. NCAA Scoring Champion 94. Big Ten Player of the Year 1994. Two-time First Team All Big Ten Player 1994. Big Ten Athlete of the Year 94. First Team, this is going back to high school, First Team Parade All American 1991. McDonald's All American 1991. Indiana Mr. Basketball 1991. And when he left college in 1994, he was the only Boilermaker to have more than 1,000 points, 500 rebounds, 100 steals, 100 assists, and 50 block shots in a career during his 2 seasons at Purdue. At the time, he set a school weightlifting record with a 309-pound clean and jerk. So like I said, this guy had power. He was a strong dude, man. Big dog. His 1,030 points during his junior year made him only the 15th player in college history to score 1,000 points in a season. And it was back in September 2010 when the Big Ten Network named Robinson number 35 on its list of the biggest icons in Big Ten Conference history. Now, when Glenn Big Dog Robinson was drafted in 1994, I believe he was drafted behind Jason Kidd and Grant Hill. Matter of fact, he was selected. No, I take that back. He was the first overall pick in the 1994 NBA draft. He was the first overall pick. And that's just indication of how great he was in college. But their rookie years, he was third in rookie voting as far as rookie of the year behind the co-MVPs or co-rookie MVPs, Jason Kidd and Grant Hill. And I think one thing that soured Big Dog when it came to the media was when he first was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks, he had some salary demands. Initially, he demanded, I think it was a 13-year, $100 million contract. He wanted to use his leverage as a superstar in college to secure a long-time contract. But he didn't get that. He didn't get a 13-year, $100 million contract, but he did get, I believe it was a 10-year, because back then contracts used to be a lot longer. They used to be a lot, for longer periods of time. He did get something like I think it was a 10-year, $68 million deal with the Bucks. And it was him demanding money as a rookie that led to the NBA eventually changing its rules so that rookies had a cap. It was Glenn Big Dog Robinson. So that kind of soured him in the media to the point people thought he was like greedy and shit, man. When it came to him changing to the pro game, he was a great scorer. And when his shot was rolling, hey man, he could score the best of them. I remember there was a game in the 97-98 season, the year Pippen wasn't there, when or at least the first half of the season, where he went toe-to-toe with Michael Jordan. He went toe-to-toe with Mike. Mike had 44 in the game, and Glenn Big Dog Robinson had 42. And then, of course, for a little while, him and Vin Baker were a tandem, but Vin Baker, of course, had his issues. He had more issues than Big Dog. And Vin Baker's biggest problem was focusing on basketball, losing his passion about basketball, and being more concerned about overeating rather than playing the sport, and making sure that he stayed dedicated to the sport. So Glenn Big Dog Robinson, he put up 20 points a game, but the only problem was they weren't really winning much the first several years he was there. He also had some other weaknesses. He liked to shoot the ball a lot, when you could argue that he should have been driving to the hole more. He should have been driving to the basket more, putting the defense more in foul trouble, getting to the line. But he tended to like to shoot jump shots. And as he got a little bit heavier, I think when he first came to the game, he was like 225, and then he became 230, 235, 240, 245. So like I say, he never got fat, but he had that Luka Doncic kind of slightly soft build. And, he also had a tendency not to pass the ball. And he also had a tendency to turn the ball over a little bit too much. So those were some of his weaknesses. But if you utilize Big Dog right, he could absolutely, light you up offensively. When he did have help in Milwaukee in 2001, when it was him, Ray Allen, because Ray Allen joined them in 96, the Bucks, and Sam Cassell, they went all the way to the conference finals, where they lost in 6 to the Sixers. And many people will tell you there were some very questionable calls in that series that went against Milwaukee. And I do agree with that. As much as I love Allen Iverson and the Philadelphia 76ers, there were some questionable calls in that series. Now, it wasn't too long after this that team got broken up, and Glenn Big Dog Robinson was traded to Atlanta Hawks, where he still stayed a 20, 21 point per game, 22 point per game scorer. He had some success there, but then he went to Philly, where he teamed with Iverson, but that didn't really work that well. And then by that point in time, Glenn Big Dog Robinson wasn't quite the same guy. The Spurs were in need of a power forward or some type of scoring forward, because I think Tim Duncan and the other forwards were kind of suffering from injury issues. That's when they were turned down by Karl Malone. So Glenn Big Dog Robinson came there, and he wasn't never a really good fit for the team. Glenn Big Dog Robinson. And his minutes went down, more and more as the season progressed, especially in the playoffs. But he won a championship. He won a championship. And he retired. I think it was later, in 2005. He retired, and it was mostly because of the fact that his knees were just about shot at that point in time. He finished with 14,234 points, as I said, 2.7 assists, 1.2 steals, 6.1 rebounds, and 20.7 points per game. He shot, for his career, about 45.9% from the field, which is pretty good for that era. You know what I'm saying? In that era, 45% was about 50%, so that's pretty good. His best shooting year was 99-2000, when he shot 47.2% from the field. He shot 34% from downtown for his career, which for that era was good for a guy that was 6'7", 250. His best three-point shooting year was 98-99, 39.2%. He shot 82% from the line. His best year was 2000-2003 with Atlanta, when he shot nearly 88%. Like I said, all the other numbers. His best scoring season was 97-98, when he averaged 23.4. He was remarkably consistent, man. His lowest scoring average in his prime was 18.4 in 98-99. And probably a lot of that came from the fact that, maybe his scoring was down a bit. His minutes were down because he probably wasn't in the best of shape. Because that's the year where, shit, it was man, LeBron James would have been complaining like a motherfucker back then. Because I remember they had a lot of back-to-backs that year because they played only 50 games. Not only 50 games, but they played 50 games in such a compact time period. So it was very taxing on those players. And a lot of those guys just weren't in great shape because of the delay in the season. And some of those guys didn't stay in shape. They weren't in the best basketball shape. But yeah, Glenn Dog was a beast, man. But tell me what you guys think.